The genre of roguelike is something that can be done very well or horribly wrong. There are many aspects that you can't get incorrect, or it ruins the entire experience. I have been on both sides of the spectrum, whether that be a good experience or a bad experience, but for me, usually it falls on a few different things, whether that be the movement, the way the character levels and powers, as well as the overall replayability of that game. Now, Light Brigade hits almost every one of my marks personally in all of these categories, but at some times does fall short. So today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review going over pretty much all of these aspects on Light Brigade, starting with the overview of the story. Now, as soon as you boot up the game, you are pretty much given a too long didn't read on the history of what is happening, and you unlock more story bits as you go on. Again, this is spoiler-free, so I'm not going to get any more detailed than the surface level. However, the start kind of explains why man's arrogance and greed cast the civilization into an eternal darkness and caused the souls of the dead to become corrupted. When this corruption happened, they formed what is known as the Obsidian Guard, and in reaction to the creation of the Obsidian Guard, father and mother, who were the head of the church at the time, formed the Light Brigade to fight this corruption. Later on, it's unknown how long ago it was or how long this took. Father and mother had a disagreement on what needed to be done next, and father went off to do his own thing while mother stayed behind and continued to look over and lead the Light Brigade through the battle against the corruption. After this, that is where your story begins. So, like any game, especially a roguelike, gameplay is king, and I wanted to start off by talking about the Light Brigade classes. There are 6 different classes in order from Rifleman, Scout, Pistolier, Assault, Militia, and Sniper, and those are the unlock order that you will get them. These classes offer semi and auto rifles, as well as SMGs, a sniper, and even a class that offers dual carry pistols. I have some words about that class, but we'll save that for when we get there. Now, all of these are unlocked based on leveling the previous class. So, again, these are unlocked in the order of you start with a Rifleman, then you unlock Scout, Pistolier, Assault, Militia, then the Sniper. You need to get the previous class to level 5 to unlock the next one, unless you are trying to unlock the Sniper class, which requires you to get the Militia to level 10. Now, I have a few issues with this, but I will save that to the end of the explanation of the classes, where we talk about kind of the pros and cons of the overall system. So, the first class that you get is the starting class, which is the Rifleman. You get a GVR 98 as well as a Type 14 Nambu. I probably botched the name, but this is a very easy to understand weapon. It's bottom loaded, just, press A, drop the mag, put a new mag in, and then rack the bolt. Super easy. The recoil's well balanced, and the iron sights are very easy to see and understand what you're supposed to be aiming with. And I think personally that the devs probably put a lot of time into what they want their starting class to be, and I think that they did an excellent job. They also did an excellent job on this passive. We're new players, maybe aren't that great. They've added a passive of additional headshot damage. So when you do hit that headshot, it will encourage you to do that more, which I think is just great overall in my eyes. The next class that you unlock is the Scout class. This offers an M3 SMG and a Mauser C96 pistol. Both of these are pretty short-range weapons, and I'm not saying you necessarily need to be right in the enemy's face for this to do a lot. However, if you're trying to shoot at a distance, you're definitely going to notice the drop-off. Now, this class can be a blessing and a curse, and potentially be the most overpowered class in the entire game. You do start with a critical hit bonus, which comes in massive handy, as well as if your RNG is on point for a specific run, you are going to be outputting so much damage, especially with the biggest mag size in the game of 30 bullets. This kind of comes down to the RNG of the attachments that you get, as well as the tarot card effects that you get throughout your run. Now, for the Pistolier, I have a get good mentality on this one, as well as I kind of think it needs some tweaking. Now, to start off, you do get two 1911s with this, as well as free shot. And what free shot is essentially a free shot that doesn't use any bullets that are in your weapon. That being said, the downside to this class is, one, my get good aspect of I cannot aim both of these because I am horrible. But also, each of these weapons needs to be upgraded individually. So all in all, bare minimum, you need to find 6 different attachments on your run and hope they're the right attachments to actually be able to be used on one of the other weapons. Also, even if you don't find these attachments, you can buy them. But I don't, in my eyes, have a secondary weapon. Both of these are my one primary weapon that I get. So, in my eyes, both of these need to do one of two things. They either need to upgrade simultaneously, so I don't have to alternate back and forth with my upgrades to hopefully, at the end of it, not be completely screwed by damage. Or they need to make it so that this specific class of the Colt 1911 has additional magazine capacity. So right now you have 8 shots, and I think it needs to be closer to like a 15 to 20 round extended mag per weapon. That's just me. Again, I'm mad because I cannot wield these akimbo, and then I have to individually reload them. Terrible. Just in my case, worst class in the game, but you may like it, and that is up to you. The next class I want to talk about is the Assault class. This has an STG-44 and a Type 14 Nambu. Similar to the Scout class, the primary is full auto. However, the different passive for this one is a health bonus, which is awesome, and in my eyes makes this the 3rd best class. There is only 5 less bullets from the Scout class, as well as the damage at range doesn't fall off so drastically. Personally, and this is just a me issue, I don't like the STG-44's iron sights. I just don't like them. The weapon is great. The kick is a little high, but realistically it is a higher caliber, so I expect more kick, and I don't have an issue with that. But the iron sights just kind of kill it for me. Now, there were times that I felt like it did get pretty powerful, again with those attachments, but it was not as powerful as I felt the Scout was. This next class personally is probably my favorite class, and in my eyes is the best class in the game. It is the Militia class. You get a VG5 and a Colt 1911. And in my opinion, the VG5 iron sights just make the whole weapon. It's easily seen, it's easy to get headshots from across a map, and overall I feel like my accuracy is probably the highest with this weapon. That being said, it's still not going to output as much damage as the SMG at its, perfect range, but overall, I feel like the up in accuracy from this weapon makes up for that, and it's not much less damage output, so it's still acceptable. This magazine size is 20, whereas the M3 SMG has a mag size of 30. So this is the 3rd biggest mag size, but with the consistency that I get when I aim down sight, I think that this is definitely the best class in the game. This class also sports a loot rarity bonus. So when you have drops on the ground for attachments like red dot sights, crystals, or the barrel attachments, the loot rarity is going to be higher. So definitely is well worth it just for that alone. One issue I did, however, run into, and unfortunately it could be me, it could just be a me issue, human error, or it might realistically be something that a lot of people run into. I would find myself racking the bolt while I was trying to grab the front of the barrel. So my hand would grab that bolt a lot more than I would actually get the front of the barrel on the first time. And what I did to kind of fix that was just put my arm out further. However, I did find myself continually messing up with that, and I just wanted to put that here. If you guys are having that issue, report it to the devs. Then if not, it's human error, and I'm just mad 'cause bad. Now on to our last but not worst class, the Sniper. So with the Sniper class, you do get a Kar 98 as the primary and a Colt 19 as the secondary. And I find that the weapon itself is easy to use, and it has a bonus of everything doing more damage. So you can hit an enemy in the foot and it's going to do more damage. However, I do find myself, for some reason, whenever I shoot and re-rack a bullet, I find myself racking twice for some reason. I want to say it's human error because I have done it in other games, but I'm not sure if it is one-to-one, and it could be a dev error. Let me know if you guys run into this in the comments below. But I will say that this class, in my opinion, is still better than that Pistolier class. I can't stand that class, and again, it's me being mad because bad, more than likely. So I love the Sniper class. It's fun. It's satisfying. I just have that one issue where I will rack more than once, essentially wasting ammo. And the headshots are super satisfying with this. So I recommend at least try it once, even if you aren't great with snipers. Now that we've finished up with classes, let's move on to the attachments and the tarot cards. Earlier I mentioned in the Scout class that you could become pretty OP and make it the most overpowered class in the game. All of that depends on the tarot cards that you have, as well as the attachments that you get throughout the run. Now, there are a few different attachments that do a few different things. However, all of them have to do with the tier that they are. So there are tiers of attachment. There's blue, purple, or gold. The base damage on these for blue is a +2, for purple is a +4, and for gold is a +6. This is specific to the sights as well as the barrel attachments, but there are additional barrels that have additional damage, like the suppressor actually does poison damage. Now, the poison barrel is probably the one that I always take, just because it has a higher damage over time than the high velocity barrel. Regardless of the tier, I always take the poison barrel just because in my eyes it is better. There are two more types of attachments. The first separate one being charms, and these work on the same principle of higher the tier, the better they are. However, there is a big difference that is added onto this, which is the countdown time. These are activated by pressing the trigger on your non-dominant hand, and you will activate this for a single shot. Now, there are two different types of damage for these. There are physical damage and magical damage. You get one or the other. So during your run, you need to pay attention what cards you have picked up and what buffs you're going to get from those cards when it comes to actually picking the charm that you want to use. Because although something may be a lower tier, if you've picked tarot cards that have been for physical damage, you're going to have a better time than picking tarot cards for magical damage. Now, the very last attachment that you can get are called crystals. They pretty much attach to the side of your gun, just adding additional damage on top of your sight as well as your barrel attachment. Now, all sights, barrels, and crystals all are RNG based. So do keep that in mind. None of these are even guaranteed to spawn. However, you do have the ability to use rank points to upgrade your class to get those better odds that are a permanent buff. not just a temporary this run only buff, but we will talk about permanent buffs a little bit later. So for now, let's move on to the tarot cards. These are power-ups that add quite a lot to the table when it comes to making your run have a better chance of succeeding. These are found from vendors and shrines or gold chests throughout the run. As you know, roguelikes are infamous for their RNG, and there is a lot of it when it comes to the tarot cards, but just like attachments, you can upgrade your class to increase the odds to get better drops. There are a lot of cards in the pool, so I just want to cover a few of them and not necessarily go over all of them. The first card I want to talk about is called the Descent. This card adds 250 milliseconds of enemy aim delay and can be very important when it comes to having enough time to aim your weapon. That being said, you can stack these as often as you get them. So if you have 8 chests throughout your run and you get this 8 times, you've essentially added 2 full seconds of aim delay to every single one of your enemies. There are also some tarot cards that allow you to stun and paralyze enemies, and these are massive. However, keep in mind, these are chance based. So it would be a 10% chance or a 5% chance or 15% chance. So the more bullets you're putting down, which is that M3 SMG from the Scout class, the more likely you are going to stun and paralyze the enemy that's in front of you. So that is why that class becomes so overpowered, because of cards like this. And imagine that with a poison barrel, which is the suppressor attachment. It is insane. Let's talk about permanent buffs. Now, permanent buffs are a little bit different from tarot cards, where as tarot cards are per run and attachments are per run, the permanent buffs are continuous and are on every single run no matter how many times you die. Now, to be able to get these permanent buffs, you actually need to get ranked points. And what rank points are essentially the currency that you spend on leveling these permanent buffs. So every time you level a class to the next level, you get a rank point. And these can be used at either the gunsmith or prudence. Now, they're 2 different ones. The gunsmith is specifically for the class and is linked to the class. So you'll be upgrading your weapon damage, your passives, as well as wand damage and extra lives on that class specifically. However, for prudence, you're actually going to have everything you have boosted with her through every single run, regardless of the class that you use. She has some unique buffs to the rarity of the tarot cards that you get dropped, the spell cooldown, the loot drop rarity, as well as additional starting health. So definitely make sure you are looking into these. Another thing is they do have linked upgrades. So the money and prayer actually do have overlap between these two. But again, you'll have to upgrade prayer and money per class with gunsmith. So that being said, keep that in mind when you are spending these points. Finally, I want to talk about movement. And like any rogue, there is a dodge mechanic because it is synonymous with all roguelikes. So Light Brigade actually has a pretty unique way of dodging, and it has to do with teleport. So the way that they kind of make it so that you are not necessarily a god and teleport across the entire map like some sort of anime protagonist is they have about a half a second to a full second between teleports. So when you teleport, you cannot teleport again for around half to 1 full second. There is also another kind of way that they combat you moving as quickly or punish you for not moving quickly enough when you want to dodge, and that is resetting your teleport. And what they do is whenever you're trying to move or dodge in this case, and you have your arch ready to go to the next spot, if you don't let go and move prior to, it counts it as a failed dodge and you have to pretty much redo the whole process again. So I think that they've implemented this in such a unique way that it feels like you are punished enough, like a flat screen game would be, but also not so much that it's an annoyance. Light Brigade also has a second unique form of movement that I haven't really seen in any of the VR rogues that I've personally played, and that is, regardless of how low or high your weapon is, if you have two hands on it, you are going to be moving slower than you would if you only had one hand. I believe that the devs are doing this to try and simulate a flat screen game where if you would attack or attempt to attack at the wrong time, you would be punished, essentially. And I think that's what they're trying to do. So in my eyes, this is fair game, and I think that it is very smart and is actually, to me, a pretty unique way to add a little bit more thought into what you are doing. Now, do keep in mind, some people are going to hate this because it does take time to get your weapon ready. However, if you're being smart and you're playing smart, this should not be an issue for you at all. Next, I do want to go over the bosses. I'm not going to do any great detail on what these are. Obviously, you're going to want to be able to experience them fully for the first time, but just to kind of start and go with this first boss, it is an aerial-based boss, and he uses ice in many different ways, most being direct or AoE. That being said, he also does have a sort of healing phase that you need to worry about when you are fighting. And it does make sense. It's not that hard to stop him from healing, but it's definitely an added layer to the fight. The second boss I'm also not going to go into a lot of detail on. However, I am going to kind of go into detail about how the fight plays a little bit. So the second boss is 100% stationary. However, there are mechanics that you have to engage with to make them vulnerable, as they are invulnerable when you first enter the room. Now, the biggest thing about these mechanics that you have to engage with is when using teleport, there are some issues when it comes to actually being able to teleport location-wise, as well as areas where I don't necessarily think you should be damaged. However, I understand why you are being damaged. So there's an upper level and a lower level, and when you are teleporting, if you teleport over the toxic waste that is here, you will be hurt, just like you're kind of running through it. The second thing that I have an issue with during this fight is you essentially need to teleport across two different platforms during the second phase of this fight. That being said, while you are teleporting, the teleportation mechanic can mess up and have you fall to a pretty much almost guaranteed death if you're not fast enough in the toxic waste. So when that happens, your teleport doesn't necessarily work that quickly. And when you are trying to teleport out, if you're not fast enough before you get, AoE hit again, you are stuck, and it essentially uses one of your lives, which is definitely no fun. And that is something that I believe the developers are looking into, because it seems like a few people are reporting this. So moving on to our final fight. For the most part, I don't really have a lot of gripes with this, but I will say that this boss is that guy. He really is. He hits hard, he's quick, and if you are not paying attention, you can be down and out very quickly. Also, with this, along with any other boss, if you die at any point, you are going to have to restart that fight, regardless of you having lives to come back on. So do keep this in mind when you are playing. Another thing is, I feel like this first phase of this final fight is just way too dark. You can't really see a lot, and I want to say that that's because the devs want you to move around and are kind of forcing you to move around. However, I also feel that if that was the case, phase 2 would not be brighter and would not essentially make it easier to see the boss during that second phase. So there is one last kind of umbrella topic I want to talk about, which is the unique mechanics in the game. Our first mechanic essentially is what happens when you die. So when you die, your spirit leaves your body, your soul leaves your body. And what you have to do is actually make it back to where you died and pray on that. Put your hands together and pray on your body. It's pretty cool because you come back and can still fight with the weapons that you have, so you're not completely defenseless. A lot of games like that actually make you completely defenseless and make it so you need to get back to your body and then press a button or whatever to get back into your body, and then you can defend yourself again. With Light Brigade, you can actually just continue to defend yourself with the weapons that you had before you died. Earlier, when we were talking about the weapons upgrades and the tarot cards, we talked about RNG, and there's definitely a lot of RNG. However, if for some reason you have made it to, past the first boss, you are then offered a merchant, and this merchant comes up throughout the run between each segment of the maps and has different things to sell, whether that be charms, crystals, grenades, stuff like that, that kind of take a little bit of the RNG and make it so you can at least guarantee to get something. So it's definitely very nice that they've added this feature, just because if you do have bad RNG, you could potentially get something better from the vendor in between sequences. Another pretty cool feature is they offer shrines, and what shrines are essentially, they hold items, whether that be charms, extra health, a weapon attachment, a specific tarot card. They allow you to use the pray mechanic and purchase during a segment. So if you're in a sequence where you're still fighting enemies and whatnot, you may find some sort of shrine that you can pray to and get whatever piece is in that shrine. So I do find that that's pretty cool, and just in case you have extra souls or an abundance of souls, you can use those during the run sequence. At the very beginning of this review, I talked about longevity and replayability of games and why it's very, important to me. So in regards to that, Light Brigade has what is called a sun run. And a sun run is essentially a single life run through infinite segments of the AI Obsidian Guard. Now, there is a global leaderboard for this, so if you're one of those people that are super competitive and you want to be number one because you think you're the best at rogues, this is for you. This is also for you to level up your classes. Maybe you've played, through the campaign 5 or 6 times to level these classes and you're just kind of done with that for now, but you don't want to stop playing the game. You want something different to do. Sun runs offer you that. So definitely is something that I think will add to the longevity and the replayability of Light Brigade. And if you like stuff like this, then this is definitely going to be right up your alley. Now, technically speaking, this last feature isn't necessarily unique to Light Brigade. However, I did want to thank the devs for having this. And it's a crouch button. Obviously, you can play this game seated or standing, but there are some people out there that physically cannot crouch or bend over. So having that physical button to be able to crouch and pick up your ammo with a distance grab rather than needing to bend all the way over definitely helps tremendously when it comes to accessibility. as well as you don't always have the ability to stand behind something to defend yourself. This button lets people that cannot physically bend over or crouch get down behind cover and not just be tethered to what they are physically able to do. Now, obviously, Light Brigade is not a super realistic or hyper-realistic shooter, but I do think that even in games like that, they need to worry about accessibility of them. So that's just me. I just wanted to do kind of a personal thank you. I don't personally have any issues with this, but I know people that do, and I deeply appreciate that they've gone out of their way to add this accessibility option. Now, that's the end. That's all I have to say on the Light Brigade. I think the overall experience of the game and what it has to offer is well worth your time and money. The way they've implemented staples of the roguelike genre are great. The environments are amazing. The uniqueness of the setting and just the overall story really shine. And I feel that, minus my few gripes, if you're someone that loves rogues and loves World War II firearms, Light Brigade for 25 bucks is totally going to be worth it for you, especially for the massive amounts of replayability that Sunruns have. Now, as for me, I do want to personally thank anybody and everybody who's made it this far. You are absolute amazing people, and I hope that you found this in-depth review helpful in making your decision. If you have any questions whatsoever about my experience, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. That being said, my name is ButtorsSomething. I want to thank you all for watching. For more games, news, and reviews, subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next video.